What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Funnel Vision Show. I'm your host, Mikael, founder and CEO of Funnelytics. And as we always do in this show, we are always looking for different ways, different tactics, different things that we can do as marketers and as agency owners to really deliver results for our clients and to improve performance. And one of the biggest challenges, one of the biggest things, especially as agency owners, is how do we set the right expectations for our clients? How do we manage that client relationship? And more importantly, how do we set that foundation to retain clients long term? And today we have a guest who is an expert at this, who has done it many, many times by building her company and helping businesses and agencies bring in fractional client managers, which is something very, very interesting. So we've got Taylor McMaster here today, who is going to walk us through all sorts of cool stuff about client onboarding. Hey, Taylor.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show. I'm very excited. And I know when we podcasted on mine and we talked all about Funnelytics, I was geeking out hard. So excited to kind of geek out on onboarding today.
Yeah. And it's one of those things. It's funny. You're like excited to geek out on onboarding. It's one of those things that people are like, is that something we want to geek out on? But actually, it's very, very important because honestly, when you set the right expectations, when you onboard your clients properly, it can make or break the client relationship, and it can also set the foundation for that long-term relationship. If you struggle to retain clients, like this is probably a big reason why. So I want to dive into that, but before we do, as we always do at the Funnel Vision Show here, I want you to tell the audience your not so humble bragging rights. What have you been able to do for yourself? What have you been able to do for your clients? Give us the highlights. Why should people listen to this episode?
Yeah. So over the last 6 years, we've helped over 12,000 agency owners optimize their onboarding process via our checklists, via our onboarding processes. So we've been around the block when it comes to seeing behind the scenes of agencies and kind of what makes onboarding work really well. But for me, I'm really passionate about helping agency owners remove themselves as that bottleneck within the agency so they can get back time and they can start to grow and scale their agency, which is generally why you started an agency. You don't want to have to be the person who has to onboard every single new client into your agency. So we've helped tons of agency owners optimize their onboarding process. But for me personally, in my own business, I don't onboard any clients. I don't have to do any client management, and I haven't for years. And we help other agency owners do that as well. It is one of the most freeing things to be able to step away from that piece of your agency while your agency can still grow and scale. So we'll get into all that today, but those are some highlights.
Yeah, those are 12,000 agencies is hyper impressive. And I know that you're a mother of 2 young kids, and a lot of the reasons we start agencies and start selling services because we have a skill, but we don't really want to be tied to our business all the time. We want to have a nice lifestyle. We want to be able to balance, and most agencies end up in that hamster wheel of like, man, we got to work all the time. So the fact that you've been able to help these agencies and also do it for your own business is very impressive. So let's take it a little bit back. Walk me through like how you didn't start at 12,000, so walk me through like, how did this come about? How did you even start this? How did you even get so passionate about this and solving this problem? Kind of take us back a little bit.
Yeah. So I was running my own agency. It was, a small shop, but I was doing everything myself. So I was doing sales, accounting, HR, onboarding clients, writing copy, everything. And I kind of had this moment where I just wasn't feeling fulfilled. And I think for me, I was feeling lonely and I was feeling like I wasn't in the right seat. And I realized that the parts of my agency that I actually really loved was the project management, speaking to clients, building relationships with clients, building relationships with my team members. And it wasn't necessarily growing the agency that I loved. And so I went to this event, and it was other agency owners. And I kind of went to this event and I was like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't want to run an agency anymore. This isn't what I want to do. I want to just throw it in the garbage. But what I do like is account management. And one of my mentors was like, why don't you just do that? Like, so many agency owners are not good at that. They need help with that. And that is the last thing they should or want to be doing. And so that's when it kind of clicked for me. I was like, okay, if I could take the part of my agency that I love and that I'm naturally really good at and turn that into a business model, well, this would help so many agency owners, because so many agency owners need to scale so that they can remove themselves from that day-to-day seat, but they can't grow and scale while they're still in that day-to-day seat. So it's this chicken or the egg situation. And so I was able to step into these small to medium sized agencies in a fractional capacity. And because I was a marketer, I could take over those client relationships. I could actually speak to clients because I understood their goals and what they were trying to achieve, the marketing lingo and everything like that. And so that's when I kind of realized, okay, there's a huge need here in the industry for amazing account managers who are marketers first, who can then step into agencies in a fractional capacity and do an amazing job. And so we've been able to kind of systematize how we hire, how we train, how we manage client account managers, but also how we optimize the full account management experience within agencies, so that the end goal is to remove that agency owner from that day-to-day seat.
So walk me through the model here. So you were obviously an agency owner. Walk me through how you pivoted and you got kind of that first client. Like, do you remember that first client, that first person who was like, yeah, I'm going to buy this service? What did they buy? And what was it that like you started offering them, and how has that evolved? Walk me through. I'm an agency. I need help. What happens now and what happened back then?
Yeah. Interestingly enough, it hasn't changed a whole lot. So, yeah, I know for most businesses it evolves over time. But so, this first agency owner that I started working with, his name is Tom. Love him to death. He was that classic agency owner. He never got home for dinner time with his small kids. He felt like he was just on a hamster wheel. He was the main point of contact for all of his clients. He had tried hiring account managers in the past, it didn't work out. Those were some of his pain points. And so I was like, you know what? I'm an account manager for agencies. I will come in and I will be your account manager, fully white labeled. So I had my email address under his agency. I was added to his project management software. I was very much so onboarded like a full-time person. And I was just working, part-time. So I was working between 10 and 15 hours a week, fully white labeled, taking care of his clients. And within, I want to say a month, he was fully gone. And he took a 180. We then called him the runaway CEO because we could not get in touch with him. He was just gone. And I was taking care of all the clients. Yeah. So that was a huge win. And then kind of fast forward to today, very similar. The agency owners will come to us. They generally are struggling with, they're doing everything themselves. Everything is on their shoulders. All the communication goes through them. They don't know who to hire, how to hire. They may have tried in the past, and we come in fractionally between, 10 to 20 hours a week, and we fully take over, fully white labeled within their agency. So it hasn't really changed.
Interesting. So the offer has changed, obviously, or hasn't changed, but I assume a lot of learnings from 1 to 12,000. How do you do it in a way that every agent, because every agency has slightly different operations. Maybe one person uses ClickUp, another one uses Slack. They do different services. So some people do SEO, other people will be like growth consultants, and it's more of a consulting thing. How do you bring in kind of in a semi-productized fashion across different types of businesses in that way?
Yeah, great question. So, how we approach it, and this has worked the best for us, is that when we're hiring account managers, we hire people who are marketing generalists. So people, they have extensive marketing experience, whether that be in an agency, whether it's client side, they just have to have a really solid marketing background. And then when we step into an agency, every agency is different, and that is the expectation. So what we're bringing in is our best practices. So we have our 4-pillar framework to account management. We have our own SOPs and processes, but essentially we need to learn who the clients are, what type of services they are offering, what software they're using, and how we can kind of plug into that. So every agency is new, but every person on our team is trained to be able to mold themselves in there. The biggest thing that we kind of preach here at Dot is that when you're onboarding an account manager, the things that you don't need to teach us are amazing account management and service, marketing, communication, verbal communication, organization, building SOPs and processes. All of that hard stuff is already taught and learned. It's just that 10% of, okay, who are our clients? What are the pain points right now? What are the systems that you have in place? And we can just kind of plug in. So yeah, it's kind of, it's productized in a way, but it's also very custom when we start working in that agency. So we need to make sure we're stepping in and quickly learning the services that they're offering, and then building out the processes and systems kind of on the back end of that.
Interesting. How did the name come about, by the way? Dot and Company.
It is named after my grandmother. So her name was Dorothy. We called her Dot. And when I started my original marketing agency, it was called Dot Marketing. And then when we pivoted to account management, I was like, I can't call it Dot Account Management. That's weird. And so we went with Dot and Company.
Nice. That's cool. That's cute. That's nice. That's a nice tribute. Walk me through. So I want to talk about onboarding, because we kind of mentioned that onboarding is that first core step, but you mentioned 4 pillars, a 4-pillar framework. What does that look like?
Yeah. So when we're training account managers, we needed to break it down into, okay, here are the pieces that you need to master to bring into an agency to do an amazing job. So when we're looking at not only training our account managers, but entering an agency, we need to audit and see where they're at in these 4 pillars. So the first one is onboarding, which we will talk about. The second is project management. So how are they managing projects? Are things running on time? Are they delayed? We want to make sure we really deep dive and fix any holes and understand that. The third is agency structure. So we want to understand who to go to for what, right? Because we are that main communicator with clients and then team members, we want to really understand the organizational structure and how we fit within there. And so when we're looking at entering into an agency, we did this big audit. So we take them through our framework and we are seeing where are the red, yellows, and greens within each piece of our framework and where can we optimize. And so most agency owners, they're falling short on communication, proactive communication, client retention, gifting. Like there's a lot of different areas that they're falling short on, but we as the account management specialists need to be able to say, okay, here's all the reds, these are the priorities, here's what we really need to fix. Is it client retention? Great, we're going to start there. Or is it maybe it's client onboarding. So we need to be able to go in and say, like, this is what's happening now. And then we kind of start working on those priorities, because as you can imagine, stepping into an agency in this role, it can be a little bit of a drinking from a fire hose situation, where it's like, okay, we have like 30 clients and they all need help, and but our processes are broken and our project management sucks, and like, we have a retention problem, and oh my goodness, we don't have an SOP for anything. It's like, okay, let's take a step back and let's really analyze what's working and what's not working and where we need to, fix things.
Yeah, I can imagine throwing in somebody into all sorts of different situations. You must have seen it all. What are some of the common ones? Like looking back at the 12,000, like what are the biggest top 3, like, man, like these are the top three reds. If we really look at everything, like this is really what most people need to fix first. Is it onboarding? Is it something else?
It's usually communication.
Like client communication.
Yes. Yep. The breakdown between the how frequently you're communicating with your clients, what you're communicating to your clients, who is communicating to clients, and making sure that clients feel like they have one point of contact. Yeah, most clients feel like, I don't know who to go to, or, I onboarded and then I didn't hear anything, or I know you guys are working behind the scenes on all these things for months, but like I don't hear from you. And so that is usually the biggest red flag.
Interesting. Okay, let's talk about onboarding, because onboarding is step number one. You get a new client. Congratulations, you won a contract. Now you got to set the expectations and make sure we kick it off correctly. So walk me through your onboarding framework. What makes great onboarding versus poor onboarding? Walk me through what you've learned across that.
Yeah. So to me, onboarding is one of, if not the most important parts of agency life, because once during the sales process, the client's super excited, right? They're excited that you're going to fix all their problems and that you're going to just change how their business works, and it's going to be really exciting. And then they sign on the dotted line, they pay the invoice, and then that moment is when they actually expect to get something. Right? They're like, okay, now what? Now show me. And so that is when you need to be rolling out that red carpet. And unfortunately, a lot of agency owners start to panic at this stage because they're like, okay, now what do we do? Right? Like, okay, we got the money, like they signed the invoice. Now, how do we onboard them? And then they're scattered. They're like, hey, can you send me access to your Meta ads account? And then the next day, hey, I need your brand guidelines. Oh, sorry, like we forgot to ask you for your logos and they're not in the right, it's like, it's very messy. And to me, this is the most important part because it not only sets the stage for that relationship, but it shows that you have done this before and that you are going to be taking care of them. And so this whole process needs to be very ironed out. And I think most agency owners look at onboarding as just this checklist, right? They're like, I just need a checklist and ClickUp and I'm good. But what you really need is somebody championing, how do you say that word? Championing this whole process, and is somebody who is there to welcome them, with that warm hug, and somebody who is there to take care of them, set expectations with them, ensure that their goals are being properly communicated to the team and that the project scope is aligned with those goals and that timelines are set and the expectations with the client in terms of timelines and who to go to for what, how the communication structure is going to look like. There is a lot that needs to happen in this onboarding process. It's not just a checklist. It's really having somebody who owns that whole client experience. And so that is what we've learned, is that it's not just this one and done thing where, it's just a part of your process. You really want to make sure that this whole experience is laser focused and you're wowing your clients right from the beginning.
What do you say to agencies, or more so, I guess, consultants, where they're like, yeah, but the reason this business has hired me is because they're hiring me as a fractional CMO or, something along those lines, and they expect me. What do you say to them?
Yeah, it's a huge pain point, I would say, for most agency owners. And I always tell agency owners, I'm like, that's great that you're concerned about this because it means you care about your clients, which is great. But the reason that they're hiring you is because you're really good at something. You're really good at strategy most times. You're really good at, developing funnels that convert and make this business a whole bunch of money. But we need to explain to our clients, like, I'm going to be there for that strategy and I'm going to be there to make sure you're hitting your goals. But the other 90%, when it comes to project management and communication with the internal team and scoping things out and sending reports to you, I have an amazing account manager who's going to take care of you so that everything runs smoothly and it's efficient and that we are hitting these goals on time. Because if you have me doing all of these things, it's not going to get done on time and things are going to fall through the cracks. So I have my account manager, Taylor, here, who's going to take care of you. And so you just kind of set the stage to say, like, I'm still here. I'm not going away. I just have somebody who's helping me do the heavy lifting.
Yeah. And it gives me more time to focus on the stuff that actually will move the needle as opposed to wasting hours on other stuff. Right. So if I understand your framework correctly, basically, you've identified that at the end of the day, one of the biggest time wasters, or let's not call it wasters, but things that consume a agency owner's time the most is all of this account management stuff. And ultimately, if we can relieve that part, but still create an incredible experience for actually even elevate the experience for our clients, number one, it increases retention. Number two, it frees up your time so that you're no longer on a hamster wheel. Number three, it actually positions you as slightly more of an authority, so you can actually probably charge more because of it, because you've created this incredible experience. And it creates case studies because now all of your clients are extremely happy and they just want to keep working with you in the long term, and also maybe tell others about your work and all that stuff. So you've really found kind of one of the biggest bottlenecks that people need help with.
Yeah. Yeah. And I see it so much. The agency owner will be almost not selling because they know they have to take care of their clients. They're on a sales call and they're like, I really want to work with you. But then they screw it up somehow because they're like, I honestly, like, I don't have any time to take care of this client, or I'm scared I'm going to screw this up for my client. And they just don't sell. So it also gives them this opportunity to A, sell more business, but B, have more time and space to be able to think about growing and scaling their business, right? Because they're not scared to bring on a new client.
Yeah, and you're right. It creates this kind of, well, I just sold a client, now I got to service this client, and then I got to sell another client because they left, and this feast famine kind of um, mindset. Things are going super well because we close a bunch of clients, and then one churns, and like, oh wait, we don't have anybody in the background. Let me ask you one final question that I hear a lot of agency owners ask and think about is, when is the right time for this, right? You're always looking at profit margins. Most agency owners, truthfully, aren't really agency owners. They're more self-employed, which means that the income equals their income. And now it's a risk, in a sense, for them to go and hire an account manager. So when is the right time for somebody to say, yes, like, I need to bite the bullet and do this?
Mm-hmm. The right time is when you cannot take on any more clients because you are out of time. You are out of bandwidth. And I see it a lot. The people will come to us and they're like, but why do I need an account manager? I'm like, you just told me you can't take on a single new client because you are maxed out. You need an account manager. And they're like, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think that that's where people have to, you know, they have to understand that you have a decision to make. You either want to stay self-employed forever, or you want to become a business owner. And in order to become a business owner, you're going to have to take some risks. You're going to have to reduce your profit margins for a short term in order to grow the top line. And eventually those profit margins will scale back up as you grow. But um, that's an important part of transitioning from being self-employed to being a true business owner.
Yeah. And you don't have to. I always tell people, if you want to be a solopreneur and do it all yourself, that's fine. But if you do want to grow an agency, it can't just be you forever.
Exactly. Taylor, this has been extremely insightful and very, very helpful. Where can people learn more about you?
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. This was great. You can find us on our website, dotandcompany.co, or add me on LinkedIn, Taylor McMaster. I'm always posting stuff on there and sharing our best practices. So would love to connect with you there.
Awesome. Taylor, thank you so much for being on, and thank you for sharing all these insights.
Yeah, you're welcome.